Sir Keir Starmer launched his attack against GB News' very own Nigel Farage today.
When will he ever stand up to them and end the pathetic spectacle of a Tory party that used to try and beat Nigel Farage, now giving up and dancing to his tune instead?
Well, Starmer may claim that the Tories are dancing to the tune of Nigel, but perhaps they're just clocking onto the fact that a sizable chunk of Brits would love to see him back in mainstream politics. Well, Nigel Farage joins me now. Nigel, let's just respond to that directly then. What are the chances on a scale of 1 to 10 of you joining the Tory party?
Well, first things first, what a very odd thing to do. The Lee Anderson row keeps going on. Those Tory benches are split. Some think he should stay suspended. Others think he should come back. Yet he chooses to focus on me. A Tory party that dances to the tune of Nigel Farage. No, a country that danced to it in a referendum in 2016, including 4 million Labour voters. Patrick, this Conservative Party that I helped so much to win in 2019, a huge majority, have let us down in every single way. Oh, and they can talk about no tax and talk about stopping the boats and talk about dealing with issues on our streets. They have been just as bad as New Labour on all of these issues. The chances of me right now joining that party, pretty close to zero.
Why is Keir Starmer so obsessed with you?
I think there's something much bigger going on here. I think this was actually a shout out to Labour voters to say, look at this terrible person. He's awful. He thinks the basic premise of Enoch Powell's speech was wrong, which was uncontrolled mass immigration would lead to people, and I quote, not recognising their areas to be their own. We'll have a look at many of our inner cities. And then he went on. I talk about a low blow to say that I decried and been really rude about the Jewish lobby. No, actually, what I'd done was praise Jewish people in North America for succeeding in business, succeeding in society, and having a strong voice. So these are really, he's really aiming at Labour voters here, not Tory voters. He's really saying this appalling demon figure, Nigel Farage, that my researchers and my speechwriters who live in North London detest. Nobody in the Red Wall should think this man is right. This was more about Labour votes than it was about the Tory party.
OK, and just before we move on to our next topic on this then, I actually saw a clip of Rishi Sunak today, praising himself for the fact that he's essentially sacked Lee Anderson. Right? I just wonder whether or not that's a bad move.
I think that Sunak has got this wrong, and I think what James Cleverly did, the inappropriately named Cleverly, did last night has boxed Anderson in even further. The hierarchy of the Tory party will not have him back unless he comes grovelling on his knees. I thought your interview with him the other evening showed he's not going to do that. And they just got themselves in the wrong place. I mean, look, let's be honest. There is no Conservative party. They stand up and pretend to be Conservative occasionally, but always govern like Liberal.
No, indeed. Look, I'd like to talk to you a little bit as well about this, landmark ruling at Belfast High Court. It's found this the Legacy Act, which grants immunity from prosecutions over claims committed during the Northern Irish Troubles, is in fact in breach of the European Convention on Human Rights. I mean, here we go again. After revelations of victims launched the legal case, the judge has now warned there is no evidence that the granting of immunity under the Act will in any way contribute to the reconciliation in Northern Ireland. Indeed, the evidence is to the contrary. So look, Nigel, should the immunity aspect of the Legacy Act be scrapped? What does all of this really mean? And we're going to see more cases like Dennis Hutchins, tried, I think, for a third time after getting a knock on the door, dying of COVID in a Belfast hospital, I think it was, as he was dragged to court in his old age again. A British military veteran there. We're just going to see more of this.
Are we? Are we in Brexit Britain a self-governing, self-determining nation, for good and bad, or are we not? And what today's intervention by Strasbourg shows is we are not. We're not in this case. We're not in dealing with cross-channel illegal immigration. We are still subject to a farcical court staffed by people who are not even trained judges. And whilst this court may well have been set up and designed by the British with the very best of intentions, that is over 70 years ago. The world has moved on. Everything has changed. And yet, the most you'll get from a Kemi Badenoch or somebody is we'll consider leaving, which means we won't. And again, this is, and Patrick, you can do all you want. Tell your viewers that Labour are worse than the Tories, and they probably are, but the Tories are pretty awful. They won't even contemplate, frankly, as a party, leaving. We have to leave the ECHR because that would be true to the spirit of Brexit.
It's funny you should say that, really, because we are going to be hearing on this show at 10 o'clock from Suella Braverman. One of the things that she says is now, well, I know, a shame she wasn't maybe more vocal about this when she actually had a position, but is that you know, should we gain out the ECHR? Should we gain out the ECHR? Is there not something that sticks in the craw about the fact that Tony Blair and Alistair Campbell and all of that lot can give letters of comfort to the IRA, but our veterans, our military veterans, can get a knock on the door, you know, 30, 40 years after the event from someone to say, what were you doing on the 3rd of April, 1980, whatever? Can you account for this? And get found not guilty for something and then retried again and again and again. It just seems absolutely bonkers, Nigel.
Yes, it does. And Labour introduced all of this concept with the Human Rights Act of 1998. Incidentally, something which Sherry Blair benefited from financially enormously. That's by the by, I guess, but worth mentioning. And the Conservatives have done nothing to change it. Nothing. It's all well and good for Suella now to come out as a former Home Secretary to say we should do this. Maybe Suella should be asking herself whether she's in the right party.
OK, one very last one for you, Nigel, there, then. Well, in fact, I'll just pick up on that. Was that an invitation for Suella Braverman to join Reform?
That Richard Tice runs Reform. I am merely the honorary president, non-executive. You know, I have no fiduciary responsibility. And you know, Sakir and others...
You're just about keeping a straight face there, Nigel, I must say. Go on. Come on, would you have Suella Braverman alongside you or not?
Well, it's not up to me. It's up to Richard Tice. He runs... And that's the end of that. And I tell you what...
that's me told, yeah.
Of course, I support Reform. Of course, emotionally. Hey, I invented the blooming name. It was what I decided the Brexit Party should become once we'd had Brexit. But as things stand at this current moment in time, I am merely the honorary president with no executive function, no fiduciary responsibility whatsoever. Ofcom, are you listening? And you know, but would I like to see Suella join Reform? Of course I would.
OK, all right, Nigel, thank you very much. And you tickled me so much there that I managed to rub makeup into my eye, and now I can't stop crying. So there we go, this will go viral. Anyway, thank you very much. Nigel Farage there, who's whatever he said he was there to do with Reform.